I want to report now on the consequences of COVID-19. And although South Africa experienced food insecurity even before the lockdown, 11% of South Africans, or about 6.5 million people, suffering from hunger, this increased over the past 6 or 7 months of the lockdown. The Coronavirus Rapid Mobile Survey found that 47% of adults surveyed reported that their household ran out of money to buy food in April. Andy du Plessis is with the NGO Foodfoward SA. It does astonishing work. It's distributed over 20 million meals through their network. It is an important issue that we are going to discuss with him, the issue of food security. Andy, good afternoon to you. First of all, COVID and hunger. What's your analysis? You're close to this, you're on the ground. How bad is it? Andy du Plessis, I'm hoping the thunderstorm in parts of Gauteng isn't affecting our link to you in Cape Town. I'll try once more, otherwise we will move on. Are you with us?
Hi, Jeremy, I'm here. The audio is bad. But
that's fine. Let's muddle our way through this if we can. I think we're being affected by a very heavy storm here in Johannesburg. My question to you, to Andy, was what was your analysis of COVID and hunger? I said to you that you're closer to this than most of us. How bad is it?
Jeremy, it's pretty bad when you think about the statistics that's coming out. You quoted the NIDSCRAM recent wave 2 information, which is likening our economy to a post-war economy, saying that we are in a humanitarian crisis. So right now, roughly 5 million people have already lost their jobs, and stats show us that by the end of the year, over 7 million people will lose their jobs. So millions of people are experiencing hardship at this time, principally because they've lost their income or ability to earn an income, and they just don't have financial reserves that can see them through any longer, and they can't access food because they don't have money. So what we're going to be finding is that more than half of our population are going to be food insecure, which is a really poor state of affairs for our country.
What is the official definition of food insecure?
So food insecurity is when, or the United Nations definition of food insecurity is when somebody, a family, can secure enough food over a reasonable period of time for themselves and their family. They also say not just food, but nutritious food as well. So when there is food insecurity, it means that there is a break in the ability for families to be able to secure food every single day. And what's happening is families are either skipping meals, eating less, or eating, not eating the right kinds of food or nutritious food. As you know that in South Africa, healthy foods are quite more expensive than the cheaper food ingredients available.
Notwithstanding the money crisis that we have alluded to, when it comes to food insecurity in this country, is it a wastage problem as well? Is it also issues up and down the supply chain, perhaps?
It is definitely a wastage issue because South Africa has a net surplus of food across the country. So it's not like the food is not there. Part of the problem is that throughout the supply chain, which is quite large and complex, spanning from agriculture or growers to producers, manufacturers, retailers and wholesalers, throughout that value chain, there are huge amounts of surpluses, but also huge amounts of opportunity. So the food is there. Stats show us that in South Africa, we dump roughly 1/3 of all the food that's produced in our country, costing our economy roughly 60 billion rand. And that's not taking into account the costs relating to the water needed to produce that food and other resources like energy and human resources. So the food is there, but the access to that food is problematic. So for example, you have a manufacturer that produces 50 million units of cereal, but during the production process, the label is incorrectly printed. they can't put those goods on the shelf. So what manufacturers do is they dump those goods in landfill or they incinerate those goods. And what Food for South Africa does is we have conversations with those manufacturers and throughout the supply chain, and we say to them, instead of dumping, which costs you money and is adverse to the environment, donate that food to us at no charge, and we will make sure that we get it to organizations that are feeding people in underserved communities.
It's just terribly tragic when we see the numbers on our screen. 6.5 million people in South Africa go hungry, yet you're telling me that we do have a surplus of food. So, is it a policy issue? Do we need better policies? Are the right policies in place?
100%. We need the right policies in place. At the moment, there is not a single policy in our country that is directing food that is surplus to be able to be used to get to people that need it. So many manufacturers and others in the supply chain are dumping those goods or incinerating those goods. We need legislation that allows for surplus goods to be donated to nonprofit organizations like ourselves so that we can get it to those that need it. There are countries like France and Paraguay and others that have legislated that no food that is edible and good for human consumption is allowed to end up at landfill sites. And so they are forced, companies are forced to direct that food towards nonprofit organizations. So that's definitely what's needed in this country. But even, legislation could take years to be able to have it enacted and approved. What we need is throughout the supply chain, all the actors in the supply chain, they really need to understand that our people are experiencing hardship all across this country in urban and rural communities, and mostly children and women, and of course our older persons. And it's just good for business, and it's good business to be able to donate those surpluses instead of letting it end up in landfill.
Appreciate you joining us. Andy du Plessis with the NGO Foodfoward SA. Thank you very much.